Great. It looks like we have some more participants have joined us. So it is 12 o'clock. We are lucky to have David S. Brown here with us. I just wanted to introduce our speaker today. He is the president and CEO of DSB Leadership Group. He is a keynote speaker and actually trains people how to speak, as well as works with leadership within companies to help master management skills, personal skills, and he does executive coaching. So he has a fabulous webinar about to share with us. It is how to get out of your comfort zone in 2020. And I am very excited to be able to introduce David to you. So David, it is in your hands now.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank Kathleen for the invitation to be able to speak with such incredible thought leaders. So good afternoon and welcome to our time together. And we are talking about getting out of your comfort zone in 2020. In order to be able to get out of our comfort zones, we have to ask ourselves what first is a comfort zone. And so simply a comfort zone can be defined as a place, situation, or position where somebody can feel safe or at ease. And they feel safe because of how familiar they are or what they would perceive to be within the control or safety of their environment. So why do they feel safe? Well, the truth of the matter is, most of us, I would say, even on this call, we're pretty comfortable with our lives. We've consistently done our routines and I would say, have reasonable income. Perhaps you want more, but we probably make great livings with our lifestyle, with our choices, with our companies, with our businesses. We have a place to lay our heads at night. We go home. We are able to have fun with our friends, go out to restaurants and eat. And so we have this sense of comfort. And there are times where we just seem like we're coasting along. We've worked hard. We've earned this place of what we call comfort because of all the work we've done to get here. But here is the danger. Here is the challenge that I will put out before you, that if you stay in that comfort zone, I would say that you're in a position where perhaps you stop reaching, you stop seeking, you stop learning, you stop risking. And when you stop risking and learning and seeking and reaching, it means you stopped the ability to grow. And without continued growth, we begin to accept that this is as good as it's going to get as a business owner. Here's something I want to share with you as we go forward here. Think about it if you are a parent. I have a parent of two teenagers, one in college, one in high school. And I remember when they were young and they were about 11, 12 months old, we said to ourselves as parents, let's get them walking. And what do? We stood them up. And we forced them in a way to break out of that comfort zone of crawling and to learn how to actually walk. And then we forced them to break out of that comfort zone of us spoon feeding them, and they learn to feed themselves. And then somehow as adults, once we've achieved our goals, we've achieved our accolades and all the trophies, then somehow sometimes we stop pushing ourselves, or shall I say forcing ourselves to break out of comfort zones. If we did this because we believed it was best for our children, why then are we tempted to not believe it's best for us? So where do you see this in your business? Short term, long term, where are you in your company right now, and why or where do you see the areas of comfort? I would say that for business owners and for business leaders, thought leaders, we've got to ask ourselves right now in 2020, it's now towards the end of February, is this a time to pivot? Is this a time to change because of obstacles or things that are before us? Is this an opportunity for us to be different, to go after more? And I have to say, if you're used to the same old goals, let's say you're looking at 1 million, 5 million revenue, and it hasn't changed, it's the same. You're relying on the same contracts, the same agreements, the same relationships that you brokered and fostered to keep bringing you the same opportunities, then there are going to be opportunities that are there, but then you may lose even more. So why is it important? I think the danger of the comfort zone or staying there is that you stop experiencing great things. I would say that it's hard for us, and I'll talk about this in a moment, to break out of comfort zones because the pain of leaving the zone or the potential pain seems greater than the pain that's in the comfort zone. And that's why it's a challenge. So why do we need to leave the comfort zone? Because I don't know if you've asked that question, but I've asked that question. Well, why would I want to leave then? If I'm comfortable, if I'm happy, why is it so important for me to leave this comfort zone? And I would say, as I said earlier, that the challenge is that if you stay in that comfort zone, you're not going to see the continued growth. And this society that we're in, business is always moving, things are always changing, the landscape is never quite the same. And this is why it's important that we look at leaving this comfort zone. Here's the word that I want to throw out to you today. If you walk out of this presentation and there's one thing you walk away with, I hope it's this word. It's potential. Potential is an awesome word. I mean, there's nothing that you want to look at outside of potential that you could think, wow, that person has great potential, or that company has great potential, and it starts to make you dream or imagine of what could be. But even though it's an awesome word or a wonderful word, a word full of surprise and great things that can happen, potential can also be a dangerous word. You ever hear the stories of athletes that somehow flame out or they don't do well? And we see the stories on the sports stations and we hear that person had great potential. Or we hear about the young prodigy, the incredible pianist, or someone that was going to New York to perform on Broadway and some misfortune happened in their life and they flame out. And what do we say? That person had great potential. Could that be said of your business? Yes, it's successful. Yes, it's going well. Maybe you've crushed your goals from the last few years. But if the word potential is not there to inspire you, then I would say that word potential can be very, very dangerous. We have to be intentional if we're going to get out of our comfort zone. This is not the time to just dip one toe into the lake, see if it's cold enough. This might be the time to just jump off that bar and just go straight into the lake and just get that shock over with. That's the thing I want you to understand, is that word potential could be very dangerous. Well, let me give you an illustration about what I mean by potential. How do you boil a frog? Or how do you cook a frog? You know, the first thing I would say is we've got to be honest with ourselves. Where are we right now? How are we really doing? We've got to be so clear about where we are before we can even dare to aim for something different. Deep down, all of you are capable of doing even more. I don't know you personally, and I'm hoping that I'll get to know you individually, but I know we're capable of more. I don't know what that more is. You have to define it for yourself. Whatever that greater thing is, whether it's a number, a target, or it's just a new project you're going after, you can define it. But here's the danger with the word potential we talked about earlier. When you get comfortable, this is what happens. There's a hypothesis that says that if you change the temperature gradually in a pan, the frog doesn't jump out. But if you throw a frog into boiling water or hot water, the frog will try to leap out. And then it said that the meat can be too tough if you're trying to eat frogs. I'm not necessarily advocating that we eat frog legs, but they can be pretty good. Here's the thing. The way you get a frog cooked is you make it comfortable. You make it so comfortable that you gradually turn up the heat and the frog starts to adjust his ability to be comforted in that water. And before you know it, the frog has been boiled to death. I think this can happen to our businesses. If we stay comfortable with our position, with our business, it is inevitable that our businesses it will be cooked. Is 2020 a time for you to stay comfortable, or is it a time for you to seek something more? This right here is called the comfort zone. And what it does, it shows kind of how we get from one position of feeling comfort and feeling safe and secure to what it's going to take for us to really grow. And it starts with that inside really gray circle, says the comfort zone. But as you start to veer further out of that little circle, you start to realize that you're going to find more purpose. You're going to figure out what your why is. You're going to be able to be driven by passion. You're going to be living out your dreams. You're going to be setting new goals, and you're going to feel like you're a conqueror. And you're going to start conquering great things in your life. And before you know it, you're going to want to keep conquering again and again and again and again, because there's something about that joy of accomplishing a goal that just drives you to do even more. It's kind of like that athlete that you know that should hang it up, but they keep winning Super Bowls. I'm not talking about Tom Brady. Maybe I am. But the point is, is driven because of success. You want to be that. Don't be a creature of habit that wants to be comfortable. Be the creature of habit that says, I don't want to be comfortable. I want to go more and do more. That's what we've got to do to break out of our comfort zones. And I dare say that all of us have comfort zones that we can get out. Now, I want to talk about a 3-step solution, or 3 steps to break it out of your comfort zone. First of all, let me say this. There are aspects of being comforted that I think are okay. I'm not saying that you should never live comfortable. You should never be in a position of rest or relaxation. It's actually good for you physically to get rest. It's actually good for you mentally and emotionally to hit the refresh button at times. You've got to be able to have comfort and security and friends and family and people that you trust. But I'm talking about deep down in your heart, you know that there are areas that you need to break. There's areas that you want to change. That's what I'm talking about. So here are the 3 steps that I believe that you need to know in order to break out of your comfort zones. Number 1, I want you to accept the fact that you are amazing. I want you to know that. If you look at the words extra and ordinary, that's just the word extraordinary. That's who you are. I don't have to know you. The fact that you're on this webinar lets me know that you're an extraordinary person. You are amazing. And if you're married, you have children, I'm sure they tell you that all the time, but you have to tell yourself that. The mind is powerful. We'll talk about that in a moment. The second thing you have to do is you got to face your fears. And I'll describe what that looks like. But this is when your why is more powerful than your why not, or why should I. And then the last thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take action. It's kind of like that old Nike slogan. You just got to do it. You just got to do it. So let's look at these 3-step solution. And let's start with number 1. Realize that you are amazing. This quote here, you're going to see a little bit later on in this presentation, but listen to this quote. The best things in life are on the other side of fear. You have to believe that. The best things in life are on the other side of fear. The first time I jumped from the top of the staircase, please don't do this with your children, but I did. I just believed my dad was going to catch me, right? The first time I got in the car, before I got my driver's license, I was afraid, but I learned that I can be a good driver, be responsible. The first time I decided to walk down the aisle and propose to my wife and we got married, there was fear, but I got through that point. The first time I had a child, there was the potential of fear, but it happened. So you've got to realize that you are an amazing person. Now this slide here, a little interesting enough, I have an identical twin brother. Which one do you think I am? All right, this is not one of our best pictures, but it was one that I just wanted to put on here. But I want to talk about the twin effect. This is when you look at the imposter syndrome. You start comparing yourself to other people, other situations, other circumstances. And because they're comfortable, you're comfortable. And in growing up, I'm actually in a mixed family where I'm actually Korean as well as African-American. And in the Korean culture, the older sibling, my hyung, or that's who my twin was, he was the one that was giving all the responsibilities. He was the one that was tasked with, quote unquote, leading the family when the parents went around. And so in many ways, he wasn't just my twin, he was my older sibling. And he was amazing. And I think he still is amazing. He was a great speaker. He was a great athlete. He was a great student and scholar. And I just wanted to be just like him, if not better. And so we pushed each other, but I just could not get over that hump until I got to the point where I realized, Dave, you're amazing too. Your brother's amazing, accept that, but you're amazing. You're great. You don't have to justify your position. You don't have to compare yourself to him. Be the best version of you. And I started realizing that until I accepted that about myself, I was always going to live in this shadow of I'm not as good as, or I'm not where I should be, or I'm not doing what I want to accomplish. You got to accept that you are amazing. That's who you are. The second thing I want to talk about in terms of you're amazing is this, what I call the rubber band, the law of tension. The law of tension. What I love about this and what I would share about this is that when you look at a rubber band, what is the rubber band designed to do? What is the purpose of the rubber band? It's not meant just to be there. It's meant to be stretched. It's meant to hold things together. It's the same thing about comfort. Without stretching the band, without stretching your limits, how will you know what you're capable of? How will you know if you could conquer other goals or do more than what you're doing if you're not willing to be stretched, if you're not willing to go beyond where you are? You see, as I said earlier, stretching is like capability. A rubber band is useless if you don't allow it to be stretched and put together, to hold your pencils together, hold letters together, whatever it might be, hold your daughter's hair together, however you want to put it together. But that's what stretching is for. You got to keep that dynamic tension to get beyond your comfort. And when we do this, I believe we're going to start accepting who we are, that we're amazing, that we don't settle, that we can discover the best version of ourselves. Psychologist Abraham Maslow asserted that if you plan on being anything less than you are capable of being, you will probably be unhappy all the days of your life. How did we know that a human being can break this 6-minute mile? How do we know that a sprinter can run faster than 10 seconds? They had to break it. They had to stretch themselves, train themselves, model themselves after something that wasn't already there. Perhaps your business, your profession, your craft is where it is because you're modeling after something that's already in existence. What if you modeled it after what you could go for, what you want to achieve, what you believe could happen, after something that's not there? Dare I say, records are going to be broken. You will break that 6-minute mile. You will break that 10 seconds flat in that sprint. That's the law of tension. Stretch yourself. See what you can do. Stretch yourself. Go after what you're capable of. And you can only do this when you realize that you are amazing. The second thing in breaking out of your comfort zones is you got to face your fears. Face your fears. I want nothing to stop you. We all have fear, or what I would call the sense of protecting ourselves. There's dangers all around us. That's real. Danger is real. But fear is not necessarily real. What I teach in one of my courses is that fear is nothing but a lie. It's imagining something that hasn't occurred yet in our lives. But if we changed it with, well, we want to protect ourselves because there's danger, that's okay. But we're not going to use the excuse of, I'm afraid. What if you're afraid or you feel tempted to be fearful, but you do it anyways? What I would say is this: if you face your fears, you'll be able to conquer them. We talked about earlier about what our why is. What your why is and why you're so driven, why you're so passionate. This is something that Simon Sinek kind of championed, and we all use it from time to time, but it's basically saying we got to go beyond the how. We've got to go beyond the how. We've got to start asking ourselves, why are we doing what we do? Is it just for a paycheck? Are we really believing that deep down inside we're making a difference in the lives of other people? Do we really believe that what we're going after is making a difference in the lives of our family and our children? What drives you? Figure out your why, because your why will push you through your fear. Your why will push you through your insecurities. Your why will push you through because you know that you have to accomplish something, and without accomplishing it, you're not going to achieve or fulfill your why. And your why is what's driving you from the very inside pit of your stomach. That's your why. So when we think about that, we're going to face our fears. I'm going to play a video for you here in a second. And I want you to watch this. This is a video of Will Smith, and he talks about what skydiving taught him and about fear and what he had to conquer and go after. So let's take a moment. We're going to watch this video, and then I'll come back on with you.
Skydiving is a really interesting confront with fear. I gotta stand up. I'm sorry, I gotta stand up. You go out the night before and you take a drink with your friends, and somebody says, yeah, we should go skydiving tomorrow. And you go, yeah, we'll go skydiving tomorrow. Yeah. And you go, yeah. And everybody goes, yeah. And you go home by yourself, you're like, Right? And you're like, well, I mean, they was drunk too. So then that night you're laying in your bed and you just keep, and you're terrified. You keep imagining over and over again jumping out of an airplane, and you can't figure out why you would do that. So you get there, and then you have this safety brief. And you're standing there, and the guys will tell you, well, if the chute doesn't open, what's going to happen is you're doing, well, why the hell, what could happen? So you get onto the airplane, and you're sitting there, and you know, it's extra because you're sitting on some dude's lap, some stranger, trying to make small talk. Yeah, man. So you be jumping with people all the time, huh? So you fly, and you go up to 14,000 feet, and somebody opens the door. And in that moment, you realize you've never been in a freaking airplane with the door open. Terror, 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 terror. And then people start going out of the airplane. And the guy walks you up to the end of the thing, and you're standing and your toes are on the edge, and you're looking out down to death. They say, on 3. 1, 2, and he pushes you on 2 because people grab on 3. And you fall out of the airplane, and in 1 second, you realize that it's the most blissful experience of your life. You're flying. There's zero fear. You realize that the point of maximum danger is the point of minimum fear. The lesson for me was, why were you scared in your bed the night before? What do you need that fear for? Everything up to the stepping out, there's actually no reason to be scared. And then in that moment, all of a sudden, where you should be terrified is the most blissful experience of your life. And God placed the best things in life on the other side of fear. That was my experience with skydiving and fear.
All right.
All right.
So practically speaking.
But I didn't like that take. I'm going to do it again. Back to the top. I can sell that better. I can sell it better.
So the last thing, before we get to the third point here, one thing I would say about Will Smith, he has a way of making humor, and it worked for him. But when you're thinking about your comfort zone, a great exercise would be take a sheet of paper, and in one circle, write why you feel comfortable and what that looks like. And then write the word fear outside the rim of that circle. And then the other side of fear, put what you want to go after. And be realistic about it, because that's the way you're going to go for it. And it could be something as simple as, what was the best month you've ever had in sales? Maybe it was 50,000, 100,000, 1.5 million, whatever it might be. And what would be the number that scare you? And if you just say 1.6 million or 10% more, then that's not fear. That's just you making an extra phone call. What I would say is challenge yourself to put yourself out there and say, what's the greatest I've ever had? I had a great situation. I'll tell you about this offline when we get a chance to talk about how I had to confront fear personally and what that did for me. So third thing you got to do is you got to take action. What can you do right now to get out of your comfort zone? And for some people, we use their acronym SMART. You know, you got to be specific, measurable. And these are things that you have to do when you think about the word SMART. What are you going to do? Recognize that there's opportunities out there that you have to take advantage of the moment. Don't dismiss it. Don't push it aside as if it's random or some coincidence. You're here for a reason. And we tend to give power to the reasons why we can't go after something versus empowering the decisions that we make and the ability to say, yes, I can. Why not me? And I want you to think that way, because I don't want you to get scared. I want you to make goals that make sense, goals that's going to stretch you to be uncomfortable, goals that you're going to go after. That's what a SMART goal is. So I want you to think about that for a moment. Take the time to put mechanisms in place that are going to force you to stay that way. And we might be able to cover this in a moment, but I want you to understand that there are things you can do to make sure you don't get back in that circle of comfort. I want you to work on that, because that's really, really important. The other thing I want you to do is I want you to ask yourself, what can you do right now? Right now, what can you do? You can either write that note, draw that illustration, make that phone call. Right now, what can you do? While it's an emotional decision, don't be emotional making the decision, is what I'm going to tell you, okay? Next thing I want you to realize that you got to do the most difficult things first. Sometimes we have a to-do list, and that to-do list can be forever long, and we can push it back, and then we never get around to the to-do list. Each day, go after the most difficult task you have to do, whether it's that phone call, that email, whether it's going down and tracking down that deal. Do the most difficult task first. And then I want you to say something as simple as a countdown. By the time you get to the 1, or if you count up, by the time you get to the 3, you just have to go. Will Smith said, hey, we count to 3, and he at the count of 2, he actually pushed them out because 3 is tempting to stop. Brené Brown actually did a lot of research on this, and you guys may know her. She's now a speaker. She has a sitcom show, or daytime talk show. She has a radio program, and she talks about by the time she gets to 1, she just has to do it. It doesn't matter what's going on in front of her. She has to do it. So I want to challenge you to just take action. I tell my clients all the time that that's a great technique for conquering anxiety. Just go for it. Do whatever it takes to make sure you're making that happen. Now, here's some things I want to give you as a support system. Number 1, you want to look at different groups like mastermind groups. I know Kathleen has one through the chamber. She has one that she does on her own. Mastermind groups are very, very essential for encouraging growth with peers. The other thing I would say is look at coaching. Coaching is an awesome way to help you to be accountable, to help you to look at areas that you perhaps haven't seen before, and to basically challenge you and put you out there as an encouraging source to accomplishing your goals. That's what it is. Bonus, try something new. Try a hobby that you've never done before. Pick up an instrument. Try a sport you've never done before. Do a craft. Learn a new technology. Get involved in your community. Get involved in the chamber. Decide to mentor somebody. Nothing's like keeping you on the edge than putting someone under your wing. That's awesome. It keeps you going. Here's a summary real quick, and then I want to open up for at least 3 minutes of Q&A. If you want to get out of your comfort zone, I believe all of us here know we need to get out. And we need to have goals that will scare us, goals that will stretch us, goals that will be more than just some wish. We've got to accept the fact that we are amazing people. Maybe you don't want to be the one to toot your own horn. I'll do it for you. Kathleen will do it for you. Someone in your chamber will do it for you. But you've got to believe that about yourself, that you're an amazing person, that there's not a coincidence that you're here, that you've accomplished the goals you've accomplished in your life. Go after it because you're an amazing person. Secondly, face your fears. Accept that there is some great things outside of that fear and just go after it. That's the 3rd step. Take action. Here's a bonus, like I said earlier, accountability systems, support systems, masterminds, and coaching. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I am going to open up for a couple minutes of Q&A, but I do want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your ability to come here and continue to move yourself beyond your comfort zone. And I believe 2020 would be the best year yet for you personally and for your business. Thank you again.
David, thanks so much for that inspiring presentation. I always love watching that video. He makes me laugh every time. If anybody has any questions, feel free to look at your screen and click the Q&A button. I do have a question for you, David. You
Yes.
had talked about something that you had to push through, a fearful moment that you had to push through. What was that?
I'll tell one from a personal and one from a business. Personally, I'm afraid of heights for the most part. I don't really have a lot of other fears, but I can't stand looking down past the 2nd story, right? And my wife says, why aren't you afraid of flying? I'm like, well, that's out of my control, but I could choose to go above the 2nd floor. And I don't like getting in glass elevators, et cetera. And I remember a friend of mine challenged me to go rock climbing, and I didn't want to do it because I was afraid. And basically, after coaxing me and calling me all sorts of names in the book, I finally did it. And despite the fact my legs were shaking, and he said, if you keep shaking your leg like that, you're going to lose your footing and you're going to fall. But they didn't let me fall. I got to the top, and when I looked down, I realized how much fun I had. So that's personal. From a business standpoint, I was one of 50 salespeople in a copy printing company. And I remember telling myself, I want to be the sales rep of the year. I want to be the #1 sales rep of the company. But I didn't know how, because I didn't have the big accounts. I didn't have the hospitals. I didn't have the big corporations. I had the mom and pop shops. But I stayed faithful to that. I asked myself, David, can you do more? I did. And eventually I had one of these smaller, quote unquote, mom and pop shops. They were building their world headquarters here. And they needed me to sell them not just one enterprise system, but 10 enterprise systems, plus take over copy, print, and some of the other functions of the company. Show me the brand new building. That one deal alone made me sales rep of the year. And I was #1 in the company for 10 months out of 60 sales reps. So that was kind of cool.
I think that's very cool. So that's great. We are at 12:30. If anybody would like to contact David outside of this webinar, his information is right in front of you. And he'd be happy to sit down. He's a wonderful person to sit down to and have a cup of coffee with. So David, thanks so much for pushing us through and getting out of our comfort zone a bit. And we appreciate all of your insight, and we look forward to seeing you at some Northwest Chamber events.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody. I do appreciate it.
Okay, thanks everybody for coming. Have a great day.